Hard Hat's all about showing up to play hard, doing what it takes to win.
If you want to cement legacy, win another.
He's your third center.
You don't want to pump him up too much, but it's hard not to.
This is maybe the most I've ever agreed with you.
What's going on, guys?
I feel suspense.
I feel it's
I
funny.
actually don't. I feel the opposite.
Really?
That's so we'll start with the mood. It is draft night here on the Garden Report and in the NBA. This really brilliant thing that the NBA does and splits up nights 1 and 2 on Wednesday and Thursday night, like 3 days after the finals. Separate story altogether. But flurry of activity from the Celtics the last 24 hours. We are at 48 hours. We know what's happened already with 2 guys on the move. And yeah, Bobby's going to be doing the Shams thing and just checking his phone the entire show. And that's cool. I don't mind.
Good stuff.
It makes it feel authentic because what it matters way more what those guys are saying than what I'm saying. So you do not have to pay attention. And that's totally fine. But here we are where the Celtics have done what they had set out to do, presumably, and get themselves under the second apron. And we enter draft night. The need for a trade is lessened. So the big story, at least at the top of the draft, are the Celtics truly considering moving one of their 2 available cornerstone players, Derek White or Jaylen Brown, to move way up into the draft for a package that would include a very high draft pick in the lottery and other players and future picks? Or are they going to stand pat, pick at 28, which is where they pick later on in the round, and then again at 32 tomorrow, and be done with it? That's the safe money, the smart money. I'm going to start with Noah because her stance was more interesting than yours, Bobby. She feels anticipation. There's something happening. Noah, do you think something might happen here with the Celtics?
I think she's nervous.
I would say starting Monday morning, I thought to myself, we're going to see some massive moves in the next 3 days between Monday morning, right after Game 7, and the draft beginning tonight. So obviously we've seen 2 of those, and I think those did not really surprise. Like, I think most people could have predicted those were coming, and I don't think the return was particularly stunning if you aggregate everything. But the big question to me has always been about Derek White and Jaylen Brown, because those are the players that you're going to get a massive return for that's actually going to alter the future of the franchise. And those are the players that I also think would be impact players for this team in 3-4 years still. So that's always been my big question. And the fact that it's not that we're going to get a definite answer tonight. It's possible that, somebody will be traded in 2 days or in August or in December. Like that, those are all feasible things. But I do think their chances of being on this roster next year overwhelmingly, increase if they can get through this draft tonight. So it does feel a little bit like we're going to get an answer to a question we've been discussing for a very long time.
Yeah, for sure. It could come tonight, and it's more likely than not going to be decided tonight. And I just feel like as we got closer to this thing last night, right, you're hearing Shams talk about all the different things that could happen and the calls flying in and all that. And you're like, is this going in that direction? Especially after in rapid succession, seeing Holiday go, seeing Porzingis go in the money dump. And we talked about all the different scenarios that could play out, John. But as today came and went, and now we're just a couple minutes from this thing actually getting started and that number 2 pick happening, which is, I think, what we've all focused on as a possible return and some of the bigger trade possibilities that the Celtics could pursue here. I feel less anticipation because I feel like with each minute that goes by and each hour that's already gone by this year, it feels like there's less and less of a chance that something actually gets done on those fronts. And I feel like all the reporting has always been that it's going to be a high threshold for them to actually make one of those moves. And now as it gets closer, I don't think that's something that just hastily happens on the fly, unless, like with the Drew trade, apparently, we said it on the podcast a day or 2 ago, did something fall apart? Did something come together? It could already be a framework of something that just hasn't been fully finalized now. That's sort of how all the Celtics trades have worked out.
Yeah. I grabbed my phone as soon as you said you no longer feel like anything's going to happen, because that immediately makes me think that now there's going to be a massive trade any second.
There could be something today.
Yeah,
I mean,
Sam Hauser, I think, is a question.
Yeah.
Because if they were to move up in the draft, I think Sam Hauser is a not an easy trade, but like, you attach the 28th pick in Sam Hauser and you can probably move up into the teens. So that's something that I've had my eye on, and that might depend on who's available. Like if there's somebody they're eyeing at number 12, for example, right? So that's why like those moments are going to be critical for somebody like Sam, I would imagine.
Yeah, it is.
There's so much variability in that part of the draft.
And it is that kind of draft because if you look at everybody's big boards, you're going to see massive disparity between a lot of the picks, basically starting in the middle of the first round all the way through to the second. You see some guys going 16, 18 that some people have in the second round and flip-flopped, second rounders going up, into the late teens, early 20s. So there's definitely a lot of variability there. So it really does come down to having fallen in love with a particular player and whether or not you want to aggressively go pursue them. And yeah, they could do that. You could see Simons being another flip target as well.
I'm interested in that as well.
Someone who we always thought, and we talked about it. I know Noah has mentioned this on multiple occasions, the idea of trading and then trading again, because had they not done a straight salary dump like they did with Porzingis and were able to clear all that space, the path to getting under that second apron seemed to be save $8 million on your first deal, save another 7 or 8 on your second with the same thing, and just keep flipping what you get for less and less and less money until you clear it. And so it might have taken multiple trades, which really began with one. They don't have to do that now. Now it's a little bit more flexibility and maneuverability, which enters the equation here. So yeah, maybe they could move up into the draft. We are going to get into a couple of different things here a little bit later in the show. And just to let everybody know who's watching now, what our plans are for the night, because there's so much buzz around a possibility of a blockbuster, we're going to hang into the beginning of the first round until we kind of feel, all right, there's no smoke anymore. We'll probably stop down, take a break. Then we'll be ready to mobilize the second something happens. So should the Celtics trade up, we're going to jump back up live immediately and talk you through whatever happens. If they don't trade up and they stand pat at 28, we're going to come back maybe 4 or 5 picks before it's the Celtics' turn and kind of take you all the way through that pick, see who's left, talk about the players that are most intriguing that are on the board, and take you all the way through that pick, analyze it as well. So that's our plan for now in terms of our draft coverage. But for now, we're just going to, hang here and talk about everything that's going on. Before we move on to the players that they might end up with tonight, and the most realistic scenario is stick and pick. It's always the easiest thing to do. But about the Jalen and the Derek White stuff, we know the reality of the situation, guys. They no longer have a need to move money, but they might be looking at the long-term, viability of this roster with 2 Supermax players and an aging core that might need a reset at some point. So whether or not there's a move really comes down to whether Brad Stevens sees that and thinks it or doesn't. And we don't really know his mind, because what they're going to say is, we love Jalen, we love Derek, we love Jason, we would never trade them. So you're seeing smoke in every direction. How do you guys read the reports? Because it's always somebody. If you're hearing that the Celtics really want to just keep Jalen and Derek and have no intention of trading them, does that lead you to believe, I mean, they're the ones putting that out there. That's where that information is coming from. Does that lead you to believe that they're trying to drive up the market in the same way the Spurs are saying, we're dead set on taking Dylan Harper at 2 and we would never include Castle in a trade for anyone? How much of that is misinformation that we should absolutely disregard?
I think it was always a matter of them carving out different pathways into the future. Because again, from what I've heard, the Holiday thing wasn't a certainty until Monday night. It was something that fell apart and came together again that day. So it wasn't certain they were going to be able to go that route with Holiday. Certainly wasn't given that Porzingis would move as easily as he ended up doing for those savings there. So I think the whole while, and I mentioned it to you here, John, with a lot of the reports, it feels like the Jalen calls, the Derek calls were something that happened in the past, and maybe they've continued to some degree over the last couple of days here. But I think those scenarios are something that they considered alongside Holiday trades, alongside Porzingis trades, as maybe you can't move these guys as smoothly or get back the value you want as easily as you would hope to in those cases. And then you got to go and look at what you can get for Jalen, what you can get for Derek. Like we mentioned, Noah, it's about having the frameworks of those deals in place. So if you need to go to them at some point, you can do that. I don't think there's an urgency to do it anymore. Like, there's definitely the top 10 picks that we're talking about here. There's definitely some teams right now they're trying to figure out what direction they're going. But from the Celtics standpoint, they've gotten under the second apron. They've cut $200 million off the tax bill here. And these are 2 cornerstone pieces for them that you don't trade hastily. So again, to me, and there's obviously some reporting out here on this at this point, I don't think either of those guys are going to move tonight.
So it's going to come down to, do they think they can get better value now than at any other point in the future? And if not, there's quite, like you said, quite literally no reason to do it right now. And so there might be a better moment in the future for either of those guys, or maybe maybe it's true that they really just want to keep them on the roster. I do think those are two players that can be a cornerstone of a contending team alongside others. I think the biggest, for those that have been online all day, you're probably seeing every 2 hours there's a new TV hit where Shams Charania is going on, whatever show, Stephen A. Smith or Pat
The
McAfee.
verbiage changes every time.
But he's saying basically the same thing, and the thing that he's saying is that the Celtics are getting a ton of calls, they are getting a lot of offers,
They're getting
but that they
calls.
want to
feverishly
keep those guys on the roster, right?
Yeah.
So
The phones are just exploding.
yeah. So the way that I interpret that is, if the Celtics want that done, they don't like that talking point out there, they can end that talking point. If they say we're not doing the Jaylen Brown, Derek White thing, they can end it. Like, they could have ended it yesterday. They could have said, Shams, we're not trading those guys. They haven't done that. That's why he's able to continue to go out and say that. I also don't think that he has, and this is, I'm speculating, I don't think that he has somebody updating him every hour on what's happening within the Celtics front office. So he's trying to put the pieces together from what he's hearing around the league and what he's hearing from other teams.
Yeah.
And maybe he's not historically, I don't think he's the most well-connected insider as it relates to this team. So it's a little bit of a balance of, I think there's smoke there. Like, he wouldn't keep saying it if the Celtics were like, we're really not shopping those guys. But part of why he's saying something so vague is because I don't believe he actually has the most inside reporting, at least hour by hour, this team keeps everything in house.
There are other insiders who are saying they don't expect these guys
Look,
to move.
and again, this is not, and Noah hit it on the head, and everybody has an idea, but I mean, this is actually how it works with these insider type guys. It's showtime. If they have new information, they're basically told, just repackage what you currently have and talk about vibes, talk about feeling. So there's no question that he's not reporting on new information, because if he was, he would frame it differently. He is basically saying the same thing over and over again.
And he's making sure to include every time they don't want to trade these guys.
Yeah.
So that if nothing happens, that has been a part of I went back and watched like 11 of his TV hits.
Yeah.
He includes
You're
that.
obsessing over this.
I mean, I think it's just, that's the only thing we have right now. Unfortunately, we only have one national NBA insider. I wish we still had still had Woj, because they used to have a different tune and you could kind of read between the lines. But
different connections.
And the other thing Noah said,
Windhorse.
the other thing Noah said, which she did without warning, was speculating what was actually going on there. So I'm about to do the same, but I'm also going to give you this warning ahead of time. So my speculation.
In a while.
My speculation is similar to what Noah had said. Celtics could put the kibosh on this at any point in time by just sending it to one of the locals. There's no freaking way we're trading one of these guys. You can absolutely do that if you want to do that. So
I've always talked about that possibility, though. It's just not something you do.
It's not something you do because really the reality is there's no such thing as an untradeable player. So it's not a good idea to do it. But the Celtics are in a difficult spot in this regard. If Brad indeed did want to trade Jaylen Brown, he's gone through this with him so many times. And now you've got a guy who's entrenched in the city, who has won a finals MVP for you, who is on year 2 of a Supermax deal, and
he's on tour.
And yeah, he's on the don't trade me tour right now. He's not a guy you want to make feel is potentially being marketed. So if they are calling, or if they're doing it, being as quiet about it as possible is of the utmost importance. So it's very important that the stories are they're getting calls rather than making calls. And if that's going out there, I think that's not an accident in that regard. Yeah. They don't want any vibe that the Celtics are the ones calling out there trying to move off of it. My speculation is that Brad's a smart guy, and I believe he has to see the tea leaves here and understand the challenges. While he might love Jaylen Brown and love Jason Tatum, he has to recognize the challenges of the current CBA presents with trying to win with 2 Supermax guys. I think it would be insane to not only be interested in it, but possibly be looking for the best deal available here, if there's one that's even close, and be serious about making it. I really don't believe that they've decided. I think fans believe it's Tatum, White, and Brown, and we'll figure out the rest later. And I don't think that Brad's necessarily thinking of it that way.
We do have a little I have a good tweet here from Ian Begley, who's pretty well connected on the New York side.
Yeah.
He says Celtics touch base today with teams, including San Antonio. They have the number 14th pick on deals that would land a lottery pick in tonight's draft. Obviously, San Antonio is now moving number 2. As others have reported, Boston has been getting offers for Sam Hauser and listening to offers for Jaylen Brown and Derek White. I think it's very feasible that they move into the lottery. Like, I actually...
So
I almost would say like a 50% chance.
So I've heard some buzz in the last hour or so here that the move up scenario has died down a little bit here. And I think the reason for that is I've always looked at it as if you're moving up that high, you're probably doing so through a White trade, a Brown trade.
Yeah,
could do it through Sam.
Does Hauser get you from 28 to 14?
That's the challenge, I feel like. I thought he could get you up to like 22.
I think he should. Like,
I mean, you do it if that's the case.
If you're
right?
somebody that like needs, it depends on your roster, but there might be a roster out there where it makes sense to make that move.
Well, we've talked about it a million times now, the disparity in this draft too. Like, how can you feel confident unless they're on the clock, moving up to 14 and knowing who's going to be there?
No, you would do it right before. You would do it at the buzzer. Yeah,
I think that's the kind of thing we would see tonight is maybe a mid-round move up through Hauser. But at this point, and I said it last night, you moved off $22 million with Porzingis. Why not keep Hauser? Like you did that Porzingis move because it allows you to potentially keep other guys here. Again, unless you have and you can negotiate with Cornet and Horford at this point, that's allowed. You have the framework of a deal with one of those guys and you know how much money wiggle room you need to be able to actually sign one of those guys. Because that's the biggest question tonight is that this team doesn't have a center right now. And do you know what your pathway forward is to actually field a competitive position without Porzingis there? So they must know some framework of how they're going to put that position together going into the future, right?
Yeah, but it's weird, right? Because you look at the disparity between the tradable assets right now. You're talking White and Brown get you a haul with future firsts and this and that. And like versus Hauser, who's like
Hauser gets you one first, maybe.
A nice piece, but like, are we serious? I don't even know if Hauser's worth a second on his own. You know what I mean? Is like,
no, he should be.
Hauser's worth a lot.
If you
John,
just
like, if you go back to look at who gets drafted between 20 and 35, Hauser is better than most of those guys.
He is, but that's not how people look at the draft. They look at what they could possibly become, not settling for a Hauser type player.
Well, it depends on the class too and what the team is.
I think underrating Hauser a little bit.
I think
teams.
Yeah, maybe.
I think for San Antonio, and again, do they need Hauser? I don't know. They have the number 2 pick, right? So they need a draft at 14. That's part of the dynamic there too, I think. But again, I don't see the Celtics moving up tonight. I could see Hauser moving, but again, there's no rush to make a move like that necessarily right now as you begin to assess what the roster is going to look like into the future here. I'd prefer to have him around, but like you said, you got to cut a little more money off here.
If you move him for a pick, what's that cost you in the middle of the first round?
3-4 million.
You know, versus 10. So there's savings there too. You know.
Yeah.
So
and you're probably doing it alongside the 28th pick. So whatever the disparity between
exactly
14th and 28th. So there's definitely savings there.
So you think they might trade up still?
I think they might trade up. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm leaning against it, but we'll see.
I mean. One, I just get bored easily, so yeah, I want to see something happen. But two, I actually like it.
We've had a lot of action here.
Not that I don't like Hauser. I do think that's I'd rather roll the. Here's the thing: do you want to? Hausers are nice when you've got a really good team. Like they are. Like I'll take all the Hausers you can get, but that's not going to help you get back what you lost. Whereas you might roll the dice on a pick that, as Noah said, more likely than not. And again, this is a reality. You look through all of it. Picks 1 through 5 are your all-star player. 1 and 2 are your franchise cornerstones. 3 through 5 are like potential all-stars. 5 through 10, maybe starters. You start getting from 10 and on, you're talking about rotation players, 10 to 15 if you're lucky. That's the most likely scenario in each of those slots. You get into the 20s and you don't even know if you're getting a second contract out of some of these guys. So it's almost a coin flip on whether they're still in the league. So yeah, it's very likely you bust out. And we've seen it, happen with the Celtics, with 2 lottery picks. It didn't work for them. Obviously Nesmith turned into something. 14, 15, 16 is no guarantee, but I'd rather roll the dice that you find your maxi, or you're someone in there who can now be a legit ascending star to join your existing stars. That's what they've missed out on. That's where they whiffed big with Romeo and Neesmith, not finding the guy to come up behind what they already had. And it necessitated the Holiday trade and the Kristaps trade and put them in a position where they were in cap jail because they didn't have that. So you have to find it, and you're not going to find it at 28 most likely. So you got to take swings. You got to find a way to get up higher into that, either by taking a big step back and finding yourself in a more enviable draft position next year, or finding a way to acquire picks a little bit higher in the draft so you can take a swing at somebody that might turn into something more for you. But of course, there's no guarantees. But for that alone, I would roll the dice on Sam, because I don't think Sam's changing your fortunes much, even though I like the player.
The Spurs are a fascinating trade partner because they have great players, young players. They have probably the aspirations of making the playoffs next year and being competitive. They need more reliable depth, I'd say. There's a lot of younger, unproven players still on that roster. So given that they have 2, given that they have 14 Hawks picks into the future, their own picks into the future, and most importantly, your future pick from that Derek White trade, there's a million different directions you could go in terms of trades with them. And we've kicked around Derek. Would he fit there? Obviously, he's been there, so you're not screwing him over, sending him over there. He'd probably be fine playing for the Spurs again. So I think for all those different reasons, there's something that those two teams could do. But can you actually come to terms on what the value would be on a deal like that? And that's always been the toughest part with me for Jalen. All the Celtics fans can sit here and say, oh, if we get Castle a first and 6 future firsts, oh, that's great. But you know, the Spurs aren't sitting there saying that. They're probably like, oh, we'll give you 2 and Johnson and Barnes and maybe like 1 future first for Brown. And are you actually going to do something like that? There's both sides trying to pull maximum value from each other in a situation like that. So again, we're 5 minutes from the number 2 pick going here. I can't imagine Jalen or Derek move here.
I don't think so. Because it's hard. These are hard trades to do, you know?
Right. They're not like, oh, they're on the clock, let's trade Jalen.
And they don't happen often, but it is 8 o'clock. So technically the draft has begun, which means the Dallas Mavericks are on the clock.
I can't believe they have the number 1 pick.
I know,
so
right?
Ridiculous.
Silly.
I'm like never gonna get over that one.
Well, you made the best point that the top 3 picks in this draft are not teams that chose to tank, to take a step back.
So the
last year.
NBA
It just
chose
happened.
them.
Yeah. So Spurs were intent on winning last year. Philly certainly was. We were talking about them as like top competitors for the Celtics last year. And they're picking number 3 today. So there's no telling what direction the Celtics could go in next year in terms of where they end up in next year's draft.
By the way, not news, but just setting the scene here. I'm pretty sure it's Torrey Craig and his son that are shooting in the other half of the court here behind us.
We might have another Torrey Craig appearance.
So he might appear in the background any second.
For those of you out there who are not draft nicks and will passively watch the draft, if you want to kill time in between Garden reports, when we dip out here after we get into that first round, Noah and Bobby have done the rounds with Celtics players, most recently Jordan Walsh, which premiered earlier today on the CLNS Media Network. You should check that out. Jordan had some really interesting stuff to say, and also talked about that interview was done after the Holiday trade, but prior to the Porzingis trade, but did talk about Drew Holiday and how important he was to the younger players and to Jordan specifically. So some really good stuff from Jordan Walsh there. They also spoke to
Summer League as well.
Yep. Also spoke to Torrey Craig, who's back there. That was a terrific interview. We talked to Baylor Shireman earlier and Drew Peterson as well. Noah and Bobby making the rounds. And hey, maybe we'll get the number 28 pick on the Garden Report sometime in the near future. We'll see how that goes. But Dallas is on the clock right now. And the assumption is that they're taking Cooper Flagg. And we all know that that's how it's going to go. But man, Flagg should be a Celtic. And so should AJ next year. But Bobby, what are you doing? You're directing traffic?
We got some, yeah.
It really looked like you were directing traffic. Our light was dying.
Over there.
So, he was really like I was trying to snap off camera, and Bobby was like,
I was just trying to make it happen. You know?
It's all right.
Yeah, I wasn't being discreet.
It all happens raw. It's raw here. It's okay. People know.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting here. They definitely need to address center, right? And we've looked at a lot of different centers. None of these guys are necessarily going to be impact players right away. So that's the challenge here. Is we've seen all the young players go through Maine. You've said it, John. 28's not getting you a ready to go kind of player. But there are some intriguing names in here and some guys I've looked at that I like. So I am typically in favor of just staying where you are and picking. If you're in the late round, like, what's the difference between the middle of the first round?
That's the big question. I was looking today at the previous 10, number 28 picks. A lot of not great players.
Who was the best?
Who was the best? Jaden McDaniels.
Yeah. Not Jaden Springer?
Not Jaden Springer, unfortunately. Who was also 28. You had Jordan.
But I like
Poole
to look
there.
at him in
Jordan Poole is the best.
I look at him in sections, like last
right,
5
no,
picks.
for sure.
Right.
For
25
sure.
to 30.
So I was looking, but it was funny because then there were some picks, some of the drafts where 28 was terrible, like 36 was awesome,
Yeah.
So it's just, I wonder what the actual probability, like I'm sure somebody has done this modeling, but like if you're the 15th pick, what's the % chance that you're going to be a rotation player?
I've seen it. Like a spread, I've seen a couple, but like not a most recently updated one. And things do change a little bit, but I've seen a couple, and that kind of like thing that I'd said earlier was rough in terms of like expectation, and you really, once you fall out of the top 10, you're looking at rotation players rather than like automatic starters as the most likely outcome. So finding hits in the 20s who stay and play are few. At least getting a rotation player anywhere out of a late 20 is a really, really, really big hit. You're lucky to get. I mean, look, it's the NBA, man. It's 2 rounds for a reason. It's like
We're back at it tomorrow.
Yeah, a lot of people don't do it. I'm going to throw this one out here. I said it on the show yesterday. My dream, my total chaos scenario was the one where the Celtics trade up to the Spurs at 2 and Flag says, I'm not playing for Dallas. And I have to say, and it got a lot of traction. I put it out there. It's obviously nonsense.
There's some coaching controversy there right now.
Yeah, it's obviously nonsense, but I had to throw it out there one more time because it's going to be gone in a little bit when Dallas makes the pick, which they have not yet. Bailey, is that correct? Not correct. Yes, correct.
And in TV fashion, it'll probably be like 8:15.
There's still hope.
So we can get into some of the guys later, I guess, when the Celtics are closer to being on the clock. But
sorry, go ahead.
I am curious because I wrote this last night. I know you feel like the answers might be over the longer term here, over the coming weeks, coming months. I actually do think tonight we're going to get a feel for what direction is this team going in, like a longer term build, a reset, obviously, if a major trade happens, which again, I think is unlikely at this point, or compete here and, be a full-fledged, team that's trying to do something this year. I think we'll get at least one move tonight. And I think that move fine. And that's still my biggest fear, is that they're really trying to get out of the tax completely here. I don't think that's the case, but again, that would be a move that would signal a certain direction here.
Well,
I think we'll at least see what direction they're pointing in tonight.
2 things will be a little bit depressing, I think, for Celtics fans, right? Like, and again, I do think there was a little bit of goalpost moving in terms of what was said from a lot of people after the season, which is they're only going to make trades that make sense and not necessarily just salary saving. And then there's a little bit of both. You make a holiday trade where there's something coming back in return, and then a straight up salary dump for Porzingis. I think we got hung up on the nonsense. Well, at least they didn't give picks away, and it's okay. And
John,
look,
is this a subtweet?
Not really, Noah, because I think a lot of people felt this way. So I do think we've moved. Remember the show we did, and everyone's like, I think they'll be fine. Like,
I still think they'll be fine.
No. What I'm saying is, it's okay that they did what they did because we did understand the reality. But if now they go and they flip Simons as well, or trade Hauser, now you're looking at probably having Brad having.
That's
been
what
told,
I'm saying.
Then it changes, because now the wild card, Noah, was we didn't know the owner's minds. Maybe they came in and said, I'm okay paying some tax. Don't blow this thing up completely. And I think that was like,
and that's my understanding of the ownership group. I think that there hasn't been like a huge change in plans. I don't think things would be looking different right now if it was still the existing ownership.
I agree with you on
I've
that,
always
but
said
I want to
that.
see it first,
Yeah. I've always said any owner, it didn't matter, was going to make these moves. So I don't think it's them. However, if they go all the way under the tax, not just under the first apron, if they shed all the way under to 0 tax, and what's left is nothing, then you have to start to scratch your head and be a little bit like leery of a new world order here. So that's the one thing I'd be anxious of for Celtics fans. If you see Simons get flipped, Hauser get tossed, no Al or Luke coming back, and let's just live with what we have, you're talking about complete and utter rebuild. And I don't care what's left. You've been told we are not operating in the tax for a losing team, which I also understand the philosophy, but boy, that would hit hard for Celtics fans who were hoping that they would come in and be stewards of this organization, ushering them forward into, another kind of championship retool, as opposed to when we're good, we'll spend. But right now for this team, I'm not spending. I don't want to pay a dime in tax. And if they do all of those things, that's going to send a clear message. And that's the one thing I'm a little concerned with right now, because we don't know their minds at all.
I'm not super concerned about it because of what Noah just said, but we have to see it.
Yeah.
And if they did dive below that tax line, that's where you really come after ownership and are like, this is BS, because they have to pay some tax to keep this thing together and actually build a team.
But I just want to caution, though, that if they do dive below the tax, it doesn't mean that's where they're going to be when the season starts. Like right now, everybody's like, they're below the second apron. They have a lot. This roster is not a finished product, right? So you might trade Simons tonight and shed another $10 million. And then get that back when you sign Luke, Al, and somebody else. I'm
fine with that.
So, but my thing though is, it's our job to react to each move as it happens, and like we should do that, and we'll write our stories and we'll do our shows. But it is hard to evaluate in a little bit in a vacuum when we don't know what the next thing is going to be. And so that's the one thing. Like I think there may be a moment where their payroll is a little bit lower than expected, but it's probably going to come back up. Like right now, they are just below the second apron, and they have several moves that they still need to make. So they're not really below the second apron yet.
I'm expecting it to go down a little lower, but if they are the kind of moves that are just salary dumps, like let's say Hauser goes out tonight for a future first, and you just clear the $10 million off the books entirely, that's when you're going to be looking at it and saying, all right, what are they doing here? Like, is this just going to be a tank kind of year? Because at that point, I'll be asking, why didn't you just look at a White Brown kind of move? Because those are the ones that can actually be more impactful in resetting things than just trying to clear off some money and maybe tanking away this year here. Again, that to me is the least likely scenario, that they're just going to dive below the tax and leave the roster right there here. But I'm assessing every possible scenario here because I'm very skeptical when it comes to ownerships and spending. Like I want to see it first. Remember, John, with Wick, we were always like, are they going to do it? And then they did it. So you believe them at that point, but there was always that question of whether they were going to do it. And to me, this ownership group needs
to. Looks like we got Bobby and Noah frozen on the screen at the moment. Yeah, we lost them. I'm going to take them off and see if they can reestablish here for a minute. And those guys know that they're lost, so I'll just keep it going. So the pick is in. The Mavericks do select Cooper Flagg with Duke here from the first overall pick, which is not surprising. I think, again, Noah put it out there, and I'm still shocked. I don't believe in NBA. I think one of the dumbest conspiracies in the world is fixed lotteries. I think that's insane, and I don't think it happens, and I don't think it would happen. But it is crazy that Dallas ended up with it, and there are weird conspiracy theories with the whole Luka to LA, and was that baked in? And it was, hey, we'll take care of you guys on the back end. I think that that's insane. I do think that it is a shame that probably the next 2 first-round draft picks, maybe for the first time in history, hail from New England and want to be Boston Celtics, and not being able to get one of them. And I honestly do believe that Cooper Flagg is going to be a Boston Celtic in 7 years. We're just going to have to wait on it. But he's going to hit free agency, and he's coming home to play. Book it. As far as AJ out of Brockton, the consensus #1 pick next year, who knows how low the Celtics will go this year, and whether they find themselves in a draft lottery. I'm not that upset if that happens there. But again, I'm team tank, because I think being stuck in the middle is the worst place in the world that you could possibly be. Anyway, we're hanging out here, and I'll take some comments while we spin our wheels a little bit and see if we can get Bobby and Noah back here. Again, we're live from the Arback Center and technical difficulties at the moment, but we've got our super producer Amit on the scene, and there's nothing he can't fix. So those guys will pop back up in a little bit. This is where things get interesting. San Antonio Spurs are on the clock, and they've said from the get-go they are staying put, and they're drafting their guy Dylan Harper out of Rutgers. He wants to be there. They want him there. They view him as a franchise cornerstone. I do think a lot of that is smoke. I don't think there's anything etched in stone. There's almost nothing in the world that's untradeable. Certainly San Antonio picking Wemby last year with the number 1 pick, that was an untradeable pick. Legitimately untradeable. Nothing else is untradeable. So I understand San Antonio saying this. I also believe it's very likely to stay put. The thing I believe in the most is that the timeline issues. I do believe San Antonio Spurs are going to be a little bit more patient with this than some other teams. And rightfully so. You can see why Houston would take a swing like they did at a Kevin Durant, because they were the 2 seed this year and they were lacking something very clear, and that was scoring punch. And I see that shot popping back in. I got thumbs up from these guys, so we'll bring them back in. You guys good? You're good? I do believe in the timeline scenario, and I believe the San Antonio Spurs are legitimately on a different timeline than some other teams. So it makes sense to me that they would actually want to stay young and not go all in and push their chips all in right now. Certainly not for a Durant who's going to age out in a year or two, or even a Giannis, because that might also not fit their timeline. Jaylen Brown would have seemed to fit it a little bit better, but I also don't see the rush for them. They have Wemby, they have Castle, and they've got another lottery pick here that they apparently like. And what's up, Bobby? You look like you got something to say.
They're on the clock now. What are we doing? 15 minutes for each pick? The Celtics going to pick at like 1 a.m.
Oh my God, Bobby, is this your first draft?
I'm always surprised at how long these teams have. Yeah, come on.
I'm mostly concerned because Shams isn't tweeting the picks.
Yeah.
So I don't have like a source right now. Like
John will keep us updated.
Yeah, John, you're gonna have to let us know what's going on.
So again,
John's like, how do I know?
Guys, I'm doing a lot here too. Go ahead. I'll do my best. We got people here. We'll get to it. But go ahead. What were we gonna say?
This is good to know. This is always been the one we're looking at, right? When it comes to Jaylen in particular, if they take Harper here, you're probably past San Antonio as a brown partner, maybe not as a white partner.
Not necessarily, because I mean, they can take him, and there was no this is not that monumental to me because they can still trade him after. I mean, they probably would have done it before, but they can still trade him in half an hour because he's the consensus number 2 pick.
Fair. Yeah, I think again though, those are things that would have had to happen. I think leading up to this stuff.
I think so too.
In terms of a framework here. So I feel pretty good about Jaylen right now. Again, unless we've talked about top 10 suitors, right? Toronto, maybe Utah feels like a stretch, but potentially I'm trying to think who else. New Orleans I've looked at. I don't know what they're doing, but we'll get to those teams eventually and see what they're looking at here. But this has been the one, right? As a major Celtics trade partner here. And in terms of the trade up thing, I want to get back to that because I want to know where you're leaning there. I don't think there's as much momentum right now toward that as there was maybe yesterday, maybe even earlier today. Like, I think those are things that the team explored that maybe didn't work out. 14 in particular was interesting, right? With that Bagley tweet.
Yeah.
I would like to point out that it is, I can't believe ESPN muzzled Shams. Remember when they tried to do this to Woj and he was like,
right?
He's like, and all night he was putting out cryptic tweets. And
I saw the Simons one.
No,
they
but
had
it was
laser on them.
But it was coded. Remember all of that? He was saying like, we are hearing that something are eyeing and targeting or all of these like,
Oh, that's why he would do those weird adjectives.
Yeah, because they didn't want him
to confirm it.
So he's like, I didn't actually say it.
I didn't know why he was doing it.
Yeah, they didn't want him tweeting it.
They're tantalized by this guy. I remember those tweets. I was like,
yeah. So he did that all night long, but he's like, no, this is my lifeblood. I'm not doing this. This is my value. So I can't believe they put the shackles on Shams like this.
Hey, I guess they're $14 million a year.
Well, honestly, now we get to watch. Now we get to watch a draft like God intended, because like I hate the tip. Like, I love watching drafts, even if I don't know anything about the players, because it's just good entertainment. I can't stand knowing 2 picks ahead what's already happened before it happens on TV. The Spurs have, in fact, selected guard Dylan Harper from Rutgers with the 2nd overall pick. We'll find out about the Jaylen Brown trade details later. But right now, it looks
like
like
Noah said, right?
this is the pick at number 2. And like I said, we're going to hang out here a little bit longer just to see if any drama emerges, but we don't expect that there will be. Next few picks, there's not really a consensus who's going to go 3 through 5 in what order, but there's some idea of where they're going to go. When you talk about trade up scenarios, I'll ask you guys here. Unless you were to trade White or Brown, chances are you can't really get higher than probably mid-teens, late lottery, or just outside of it. Who in that range would you have your eye on if the Celtics did make a move that you think is an intriguing prospect?
I think the big one when you look at them, Cedric Kouard, and he got hurt at the end of the year. He's a guy that, transferred and gained a lot of momentum going into his transfer, but he ultimately is a guy that I think is pointing upward in terms of where he's going to go. Like, I think I saw him position mid first, maybe as low as 20, but I think you could potentially see him go top 10, 15 at this point. So that's the highest rated guy that they've reportedly worked out. I think he has the mold of being the wing that does all the different things that we've praised the Celtics for having, wings that can do: defend, athleticism, offensive upside, as a top tier scorer there. So I think he's going to end up being one of the better players from this draft. And again, that's the highest rated guy that we know they've worked out at this point. So I would definitely look out for a name like him. And there was some reporting from Bull Pet, I believe, about the Illinois guard there. I don't have the pronunciation of his name right offhand, John, but that was another guy, a point guard, more of a offensive orchestrator, passer type point guard out of Illinois there, who's probably in like the teens, I'd imagine. Not a super fluid offensive game for him. So those are the two I would look out for with them. There's some developmental centers. I know you like Sorber, who's probably a mid first.
Yeah, he has a little bit like of that old fashioned game that I can't like perfectly picture. It's hard because I keep thinking like, who is a good fit for the Celtics? But then I'm like, who are the Celtics? Like, is it still going to be the same system? Is it still the same principles? I would assume to a degree. I like Maxime Reynaud because I think the big that can shoot is kind of what you ideally want moving forward in the NBA. I think he's probably somebody that is not going to be available at 28, but could be available if you trade up a little bit.
You think he'll go higher in the first?
I think so.
That's the thing.
I'm the last person that should be predicting like where these guys are going to land. But
we're talking about the same guys and with the same evaluators here who have, one of them will have a guy 13th, one of them will have him 37th, or even into the 40s.
Stunning.
It's been insane.
Yeah, it's weird.
So yeah, it's crazy, the ranges with some of these guys.
The NFL was like that this year too. There was a fairly wide range in terms of where the expectation is some people would go once you got past a certain point. So it's just one of those years. But that bodes well for the Celtics if you're picking 28, because if it's teams say this all the time, right? We would have taken this guy blank, to kind of make it seem like. But this might actually be a case.
They said that with Walsh, right?
With Walsh, they said there was a number of guys they felt comfortable with, and that he was one of them. They didn't say. I think Baylor, you reported, right, that they promised him 30th if he was available, and there he was.
They were going to move back.
I think Sam Hauser's future might depend right now on whether the guy they want is available still, right?
Or one of several guys.
So it could be really that specific.
So, you know what I find interesting this year too, and I believe they've continued to have some guys in here over the last week that aren't on the list that's publicly available there, but their workout list was very strange this year. Last year's, there was a lot of smoke around guys that you could have looked at and said, all right, these are guys they're interested in, that they've had in the building, that they've fully assessed. And with Shireman, they assessed him in 2022. Right. So they had several periods where they had him in the building and tested him out and talked with him and all that. So they knew him very well. This year's prospect list of guys that they've had in the building and done workouts with, and again, there's been more since this list was put out, half of them went back to school. Half of them look like summer league invites or G League guys. There's a small number of them who are guys that will actually get drafted. So I found that interesting just from like a planning perspective, right? Like, what are they planning on doing here? I think sometimes your workout list can say a lot about that, but it can also say, and this is something I've been hearing about this class, John, agents want their guys to go to teams where they have minutes. And yes, the Celtics are obviously a team that could have minutes more than in recent years, but look at the rookies that they've drafted over the last couple of years. They've gone to Maine. They've sat on the bench. They've struggled to fight through for playing time.
What did Baylor Shireman tell us about how Joe feels about rookies.
You got to quote it because I always screw up the quote.
Yeah, that I don't like rookies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's gonna
Bobby's
look
been
great.
repeating it as I hate rookies.
'Cause that's the
he
real-
makes it so much more
that's the real
vile.
sentiment.
Yeah.
I effing hate rookies, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every time, yeah.
Real,
I
real
think
quick,
the-
Noah. I just want to just because we were on
go
it a
ahead.
minute ago. Vincent Goodwill, Yahoo Sports, a source to Yahoo Sports on Dylan Harper and the Spurs. Quote: He ain't going anywhere. So again,
That's
just
been
kind
the
of
sentiment, right?
that's been the sentiment. We don't know if it's real or not, but I was going to ask you. Well, Noah, finish your thought. I wanted to circle back to the rookie thing, but where you were
I
going.
was just gonna say not to read too much into reported workouts because they've been working out a lot of guys that have not been reported.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know that the list that we know, Hoops Hype is kind of collecting whenever something's reported. I don't know that it's not nearly comprehensive to who they've actually met with. So that's like the one thing I just wanted to add.
But I
to
still think that's telling that they've had guys in recent weeks that they're trying to play catch up on, because I think it signals, all right, maybe there was a time where they were thinking about moving up for certain guys, or maybe not picking in those spots, or just different strategies that have evolved over time. Like, I think that's the one thing a workout list can reflect, or at least the order that these workouts happen in. And then again, on the agent side of things, because they control that stuff,
Shams
where
is
do they want
back.
guys to
He's
go?
back.
He's back. He's tweeting the pics.
Sh-
They only kept him away for number 2. He couldn't do it.
Shams had to be rebooted, like your live shot. It went down for a little bit. I think you guys froze while I was making this joke. It's unbelievable. They're frozen. You're not supposed to freeze. Amen. It happened again. Okay, these guys froze again while this happened. The pick is in. We'll put that up on the screen in just a little bit. I do find it a little bit curious. I know we joked about it, but Bailey, can you text those guys? I don't know that they know that they're down. They might still be talking. Send word out to the field that they're down. I do think it's interesting. We've talked about this a fair amount with Joe Mazzulla. That the thing he said with Shireman, I believe one other person. I don't want to get it wrong. I believe there was another story, perhaps from Torrey Craig, involving Joe Mazzulla and a rookie as well. But I am curious how Joe coaches this team next year, because it is going to be a weird mix. Is it a win at all costs thing, or is it a develop thing? I don't really know. I think from my perspective, how I've always viewed it is, if you're not a serious title contender, you have to approach things a little bit different. And some coaches can't do that. Some coaches, the Red Sox are going through it right now, and there's a little bit of a push and pull, I think, between management and what's going on. Cora's managing to win every game and was talking about guys like Anthony and Mayer there not going to play against tough lefties, and everyone's shrugging their shoulders like, why? Like, what are you trying to do? He's trying to win every game. Joe Mazzulla tries to win every game on a team that's going to win 40 games next year at the expense of developing Baylor Shireman or any rookie they draft, especially if they go up into close to the lottery. If they go in and draft a guy at 13, 14, 15, and we go through the same nonsense we went through, and again, different scenario with Romeo Nesmith, but not really. One of those years was a lost year, and they still wouldn't play him. It was insane. Brad wouldn't play those guys. You have to. It's criminal to not develop your younger players. They're not going to develop on their own. You got to put them in there, trial by fire, warts and all. You're not going to start them and play them 35 minutes a game, but you got to find a way. There's got to be a pathway to playing, and you have to accept that it's not going to be perfect, and they have to make mistakes when they count, or else they're going to be so skittish when you do put them out there, they're never going to be able to do anything at all. Bobby's waving at me. Oh, am I holding you guys up?
No, we were liking the solo shot. Noah was really enjoying it, actually.
It's just you were so in your element, Some
What were you
people might
saying?
freeze
Fill
up
us
when
in.
they're stuck alone, but John was just...
Yeah, but anyway, we were talking about the Joe Mazzulla thing. I did another Celtic say something that on the record or off the record? No, you froze again. Oh my God. This is unbelievable. They froze again. I don't know how much longer I can do this. Guys, send me super chats. I'll take the one that I have and I'll put it up on the screen. And the Hornets are now currently on the clock. put this up here. If the Celtics draft Cooper Flag, can Bobby shave? Oh, man. I think we should do it anyway. Let's come up with a different reason for Bobby to shave his head. I'm down. I'm down with it. I'm down for it. I guess I'll pause. I didn't do this yet, and I probably should have done it by now, but I should give a quick shout out to our sponsor over at Prize Picks. And again, you guys are, if you're here, you watch the show, Prize Picks has been with us for the past couple of years. Our presenting sponsor here at CLNS Media and the Garden Report, the #1 daily fantasy sports app in all of North America. And it's very simple. And I know we're in a down period for sports right now, but there's still plenty of stuff you can get in on the action with professional baseball and women's basketball. And then obviously you want to gear up for the football season, which is going to be wild and it's going to be fun. And I know there's always a lot of action in that time. But if you want to get into it right now, one of the things you could look at to jump in on is you sign up, you use that promo code CLNS, and immediately you're going to get 50 in your account when you play 5. It's all you have to do. So once again, play 5, get 50 instantly. Pick more or less on 2 or more players, win up to 1,000 times your cash. It is that simple. Lots of fun deals that you can do. You've got Taco Tuesday, Freaky Friday, free squares going out all the time, and lots of other promotional opportunities. So once again, check it out. Download the app. Put in that promo code CLNS. New users, you play 5, you get 50 instantly in your account when you get going with Prize Picks. Once again, Prize Picks, run your game. I'm going to try this one more time with Bobby and Noah, and if it freezes again, we might have to interrupt the stream and come back a little bit later. Guys, give me the double thumbs up. We're feeling good. Double thumbs up. Look at these guys. All right. Hey, we're dealing with what we can here. We're dealing with, shoddy Wi-Fi from the RBAC Center. These guys are in the court. But guys, we're trying to get through the Joe Mazzulla portion of this podcast. We mentioned the Baylor Shireman
Playing rookies.
Did another Celtic give you a fun story? Was was that on the record?
Oh, Jordan.
It was on the record. Jordan Walsh about Joe and
we got
Baylor?
going from everybody.
Joe and Baylor.
Was telling us about how Baylor and Joe had like a standoff in the hall, which I still can't quite picture how that went down.
No, I can.
Tell people about that, and you guys should go watch
the
Torrey Craig interview. Was awesome. You guys should watch it. But tell that story.
Yeah, they met in a hallway, going through the same door. You know how it goes. You go, and I guess it got to a point where, and I think he described Shireman as being in a towel. He was maybe coming out of the shower or something. I don't know, or workout, and then you had Joe lying on like a trainer's table waiting to go through the doorway, and they were both standing off for
an hour
or so, and they were going to keep going until a team meeting. This was pregame at a game. I don't know what building it was in, but they had an hour-long standoff that finally ended only because they had a team meeting before the game.
And the story that Jordan told us was that Joe actually competed in a jiu-jitsu match, if that's the term, on Saturday in Connecticut. He drove to Connecticut and competed in a jiu-jitsu match. And we asked Jordan if he has been recruited to do jiu-jitsu with Joe, and he said no. Joe just chokes him out in practice, or just
beats him up.
Yeah. So
Jordan's getting beat. Speaking of rookie treatment, yeah, he's
still getting rookie treatment going into his third year.
Still getting rookie treatment.
Yeah,
his third year. And he's playing summer league again. So
and we don't know what happened with Mazzulla. He could be in the hospital right now, or he could have won the title.
Yeah, nobody's heard.
So
he hasn't said he hasn't seen him since.
So someone tweeted me. This could be totally bogus, but someone tweeted me that they lost. It might have been completely
sources
made up.
told Bobby that Joe lost.
Yeah. I'll hear about it if he didn't. But
Bobby, if you don't find a way to get to the next Joe, you guys should absolutely find a way to get to the next Joe Mazzulla fight. That would be wild.
That would be unreal. But he doesn't like publicizing that stuff. So we're gonna have to. I don't think we can make it a whole CLNS production. I think we'll just have to kind of witness it and talk about it. But yeah, we can work on that.
Nah, we're showing up en masse.
Yeah. We're gonna have
we're bringing Richie, Ahmed, 12 cameras.
The whole thing. We'll broadcast it live.
2 things about that. One, I love how we can ask anyone for their Joe story, and we know we're gonna get one, and we know it's gonna be crazy. And then number 2, we asked Baylor John for his, and he said the whole I don't like rookie thing. Meanwhile, in the back of his head, he's probably thinking about that hour-long standoff, being like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't tell that one.
Pronounce it with me. The Duke guy. Knipple?
Maluk. Oh, Knipple. Yeah, Con Knipple.
Con Knipple just went 4 to the Hornets. there.
Yeah, it was trending in that direction.
So,
So
the last intriguing potential trade that was not real, but was theorized or kind of thrown out there or a team that was thrown out there was New Orleans picking at 8. Is that correct?
I hadn't even heard that.
New Orleans is 7.
7.
Brooklyn's 8.
It's more. I think it's more speculation, fan buzz, but people have kind of talked about, hey, does 7 and Trey Murphy get you something?
I've liked Trey Murphy
from the Celtics side of things. I kind of want to hang until about 7, just because that's the last place I see any potential smoke for something big.
Toronto too. I don't know what.
And where's Toronto?
Doing. 9.
No, maybe we'll hang that long.
Let's stay till 15 though.
Maybe
no. I mean, it's going to be interesting here. To me, it's just there's that pull and tug, John, of Celtics want everything from a team. If a team gives up everything to them, what are they doing? They're just going to build around Jalen and scraps and a couple stars. Like, that's the tough part for me with the New Orleans when I was looking at that. And I do love Trey Murphy. I don't know how you feel about him.
Oh, he's great.
I love RJ Barrett in Toronto. He's not Jalen, but he's a great player. He's younger than Jalen. So those are some guys that I look at there and say, it's a building block of a package, but all we've heard is that they have to be blown away. So what is that? I've asked it again, and again. 5, 6 firsts, a top 10 in this draft. Multiple young play. Like, I don't know what blown or what was the other phrase that was being used earlier? Blow them out of the water. Like, I don't know what any of this means.
Can the Utah Jazz blow you out of the water? They are currently out of the clock. You know, you've got Ainge connections over there. People who have brought Jaylen Brown into this basketball world, and who have Noah.
No, and don't forget, Austin Ainge was a part of this front office as of 2 weeks ago. So he knows where the Celtics are at. He knows what they're thinking, how they're prioritizing things, what kind of value they put on their guys. And so from the moment that move happened, you know, they were always an intriguing trade partner because of the Danny Ainge connection, but it's far more intriguing to me now, considering the fact that Austin Ainge was literally a part of this front office in this offseason. And they have a small front office. It's just a couple people that are in these decision rooms, and he was one of those really key guys. And so I've been curious about any potential moves. And I know there's been some reports today, I don't know how credible they are, but potentially them being interested in Derek or Jalen, but they're one of the few teams that I think are intriguing in that sense.
So there are a couple of intriguing teams coming up here over the next few picks. And again, the likely scenario is, always has been, continues to be that nothing's going to happen here because, number one, Jaylen Brown and Derek White are tremendously valuable players you currently have under contract, still in their primes, and trading them isn't something that you have to do. It's something you would only do if you thought that it was going to improve you both now and in the future. And it takes a certain type of package to get that done. Other teams have to also want to pay the money that you have to pay someone like Jaylen Brown, who's, you know, going to make $60 million plus over the next several years as well. Derek White is a different story. Derek White, his contract makes him, it makes the whole situation more palatable if you were to acquire that. If that's the case,
every team,
we have debated this back and forth. Standalone value, just simply, it's hard to say because each team might value a person differently. But if you were just to kind of take a step back and say, which player gets you more theoretically, is it Brown or White?
I think the average team would put together a bigger package for Derek, but I think that the highest offer out there would be a Jaylen Brown offer if I had to put my finger on it.
Yeah, and like you said, it's a limited number of teams. I think you lost one in Houston between the Durant trade and the Fred VanVleet contract today. The Spurs thing came and went at number 2, it looks like. There's a couple other teams in the top 10 probably that explored it. But once those opportunities all come and go, that's why I feel like Jalen's going to be here. The Derek one's interesting to me because when we were sitting here 3 days ago and Drew was on the team and we didn't know what direction that was going in, I think there was a more possible situation where Drew's here because you can't move him, and then you look to get back as much as you can for White. I don't like the idea of moving White at this point because then you have nothing into the future in the backcourt. That guy's still a staple.
How can you say that to Noah? She's right next to you. How can you say that?
Oh, about
Very
Peyton?
little.
Well, here, yeah, I wasn't. I don't know. I didn't react more aggressively.
That's
actually,
not
to
a,
that.
it's a
What she was
commentary on
gonna say,
everything
Bobby, is
else.
she wasn't listening to you at all.
I was
She doesn't
listening.
listen to me
I was
either.
listening. I was just weighing. I was internally weighing whether or not I wanted to say something else.
Once it's my turn, it just boom, which is fine.
I knew what you were saying.
What's the
Say,
thing
I
you
was
were
actually
internally
weighing whether or
weighing?
not I
I'm
wanted to
far
say
more
something.
interested in what you were weighing.
White.
No, okay. The one consideration around trading Derek, which I think maybe gets overlooked. Yes, you can get back, young prospects or whatever, but he's exactly the kind of player you want on your roster in a year and a half alongside Tatum.
You're very upset about people calling him old.
I'm not upset about it. I just think that
You were upset that day. Maybe you
I wasn't
come down
upset
on
about it. I just wanted to make a point that I think that it's not accurate. Like with Derek, you have to think: are the prospects or the value that we're going to get back be more effective towards winning a championship in a year and a half than Derek himself? And unless you're not a believer in this core still existing with Tatum, like in this era, like you no longer think that Tatum can win a championship in Boston.
And that's what
At
I'm
that
so
point, like
curious
you have
about.
to make it. So that you'd have to feel like we really ripped somebody off here, where we actually got back 2 Dereks in value, and that's hard because Derek's amazing. So
This is what I'm most curious about when it comes to them. And we'll talk to Brad later tonight, right? And this is
I'm
one of the
intently
questions we
listening
can
to
ask.
every word you say right now.
We got to ask Brad, how do you feel about this core eventually coming back together and being championship level material? Because forget the aprons, forget the tax, all this other stuff we're talking about here. That should be a heavy determiner in which direction they're going here. If they feel like Brown, Tatum, White, and some other players around them can get them back to that level, I think you roll with that. If you're skeptical of where guys are in their age trajectory at that point, or what the ability is to put, and Noah shut me down again.
Ace Bailey's been selected.
By
And
Utah.
where the supporting cast is going to be at that point, that's where I think you look at the future and starting to set yourself up for a different era here. Because I don't know how you feel about that. What is this group's chance once everything's back together here with Tatum of being at a championship level again then?
I mean, I think it's high because I think that if you have those 3 guys, a lot of it rests upon my belief is probably not equal to everybody else in the chat and you guys. I think Peyton Pritchard can take a step to really be like an elite player. So to me, it's those 4 guys. If you have those 4 guys on a roster and solid pieces around them, I think that's a contending roster. Like,
can we talk about Luke too?
Yeah, throw in Luke in there. So, but that's the question is, I might be higher on that scenario than Brad Stevens is. It's actually probably a high chance that I'm higher on that scenario than Brad Stevens is.
Because this is what Stevens does, right, John? And Ainge did it, right, with KG and Pierce and just all these different inflection points in history. I'm sure the Patriots did it a couple of times. You look at what you have right now and you say, we could keep this going. That's the easy decision. You roll forward with what you have because it's the safest and most palatable choice. Or you can make a really tough decision. And Brad has made tough decisions, not this tough. And I think he's avoided the Brown one smartly through different periods here. But to me, my knowledge was always that his driving philosophy was if we have Tatum, and he said it a month ago, and Brown, we're always going to be competitive no matter what's around them. Now that Tatum's hurt, now that Brown's hurt to some degree now too, does that change along with the fact that they're both on Supermaxes now?
Source telling ESPN the Utah Jazz are keeping Ace Bailey. Again, it is weird because the NBA is weird this way. It's one of the stupidest things in sports. Teams pick the players, and that's who drafted the player, and the record goes down that they drafted the player, even if a trade has already been agreed upon and they're drafting them for another person, rather than just saying the pick has been traded to this team and letting that team make the pick. So you always have to kind of pause and wait and see whether or not that player is actually going where they were going. But in this case with Ace Bailey, they are. Ace Bailey is the one who did not work out, right?
He was passing up a ton of workouts.
And I don't know that Utah was one of them, right?
I had heard he wanted to go to Utah. I don't know.
Utah?
I know
the
initially.
One? Okay.
I think the Wizards was the one that people were saying like, oh, he really wants to go to the Wizards. He didn't want to go to Philadelphia, reportedly. That's what people at least think. So because he was projected to be the number 3 in the offseason. So
and Philly passed on him.
I think his thing is that he wanted to go somewhere where he would immediately have a big role. And some of these, like we know, right, you can be a top 3 pick and not have that right away. And in Philadelphia, like they have if everybody's healthy, they have a pretty crowded roster. So he'll be going to Utah.
He should play a decent amount in Utah. They have veterans, but they've sat. They could move guys.
Yeah.
There's
All right,
definitely an open door.
Guys,
to
we're gonna try one more hard reset from the field. I'm gonna bump you guys real quick because Amit's gonna try to do something when he's out there because we are a little glitchy. And again, apologies to people there. And is that true? Ma Irene, one of my favorite viewers here, who's always pumping the the please like this stream and retweet and all of that stuff. I couldn't remember. I didn't think Utah was one of the Ace Bailey teams. And somebody had tweeted when Bailey got picked that he looked shook at first. So I do wonder if that were the case as well. But the Wizards are on the clock. They're picking at 6. We mentioned a couple other potential places that might have been intriguing for the Celtics if they were to try to trade way up into it. And again, the deeper you get into the lottery, the less likely it would appear that anything is happening regarding Brown and White, which should make the majority of Celtics fans happy because I don't think people wanted to see them move on from that. Whether or not that's good business, that's up to you guys to decide. I have my own opinions, but I do think that if you were going to take that big swing, it did have to involve a higher pick, unless, of course, you're getting a pick at this point with ready, fully baked players who are not Jaylen Brown or Derek White, but could become something, or something close in the near future, in addition to a lot of future assets. And I still think that's on the table. But again, the more likely scenario has always been that the Celtics are going to stand pat. We are with the Wizards here at 6, and Bobby and Noah are back, and we're going to do the thing where I'm going to try to set the shot, and then I have to switch it. And here we are again, and there they are on the screen. This is the 5th time is the charm, guys. Where were we in the conversation when you froze last time?
We talking Bailey.
Bailey. Who do you out of the guys who've been picked right now? Because it has been a little bit of a crapshoot, right? After Flag, I don't know whether people necessarily feel that like any of these are blue chippers,
No.
future stars. Anybody's game jump out to you of among the people that have been picked in the top, few picks after Flag?
I like Dylan Harper, but
you do.
I think it's like Cooper Flag, Dylan Harper, and then like everybody else.
I would just say, and this obviously isn't a reflection on them, but that Rutgers team had Harper, Bailey, 2 of the top 3 picks in the draft at one point. In terms of the projections, they weren't great this year. I don't even think they made the NIT, and that's some serious talent there to build around. And who knows what the rest of the roster was around those guys, but that always stands out to me. Not necessarily that you have to go win a national championship to become an NBA player, but to really struggle like that. Remember that conversation was around Ben Simmons, who actually backed out of a potential NIT trip or whatever they were going to do, a NCAA thing at that point, and his team really struggled that year. So I take some stock in that. I'm not super familiar with either of their games. It sounds like Bailey's more of a attacking slash and kind of scorer type, and Harper is more of that well-rounded wing game. So I definitely think there's more, especially going to a team that's already pretty set, right? With Wembanyama and Fox, he can play a more complementary role rather than being the guy like Bailey who's going to have to.
I actually don't understand.
Utah.
I don't understand the insistence or the allure of holding on. I understand the Spurs timeline scenario, but I don't understand adamantly wanting to stick and pick for a player like Dylan Harper, who seems fine. Fine.
I think some people think he seems great, and I've watched him a very limited amount compared to some people. So,
yeah.
But I think a lot of people think that he has a very high ceiling.
Yeah.
But I would probably say myself, like I value winning in college and like how you impacted winning
for sure
way more. And I don't do draft scouting and ranking and things.
Ben Simmons has something to say about that.
I just mentioned that.
Yeah, right. You go to like the Villanova guys, right? And there was a moment in time where people, I remember, think like Stephen A. and those guys were saying like these are not NBA players, and like Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo, like they all became NBA players.
Peyton Pritchard was a big time college winner,
right? So like I think that winning scale that is hard to measure like does translate a lot of times. Like I think the big one in this year's draft is Walter Clayton, and like how much can you carry over his success in college and like his clutchness and his big plays down the stretch and like helping Florida win a March Madness title? Like I value that a lot, and I don't know how much teams are going to evaluate, but if he didn't have that type of postseason, I don't think he'd be looking at he'd be like an early 20s pick, which right now he's kind of slated to be. So
which is still solid pedigree.
Yeah, there's so many different things you're balancing, like the raw athleticism and the shooting and the measurements when they come in, and like the winning impact thing is like one of a million and probably not that highly valued by scouts, but I like it.
So my process is, and we've done this for a couple of years now, John, and we're not watching a ton of college throughout the year.
Trey Johnson, number 6 overall.
To
the Wiz.
Wizards. No, he's going to join Olynyk and Smart and Brogdon. Yeah, so when I'm going through this process now, we've done this for a couple of years. You're not watching these guys all year. You're not watching their full games, which I think is important. So I don't get too caught up in the film of it. I don't get too caught up in watching a ton of the highlights because you're just seeing the best of the best, right, with them.
That's what Jimmy's for.
Yeah, he watches the all good highlights.
Yeah. Jimmy is amazing.
So what I do, John, I'm interested to hear like what you value in these draft guys.
Honestly,
there's certain skill sets I love, and to me, it's the defensive ability now in the game. Like you can't be a weakling defensively. I don't love the guys who have no offensive skills whatsoever and are just all athleticism and, like this cardboard cutout for, skills to build on. Like I like guys having tangible skills, and I do like guys being in competitive situations. Like if I'm just watching them play over in Slovenia, it's tough for me to believe in that a lot of the time.
I like shot creation.
Yeah.
I like shot creation and general basketball sense. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So like the ability to get your own shot is great because like, especially if you're drafting up high, because if all you're getting is a spot up shooter at that point in the draft, I think you can get that type of thing somewhere later. You don't want somebody who's a specialist. You want someone who has the ability to affect the game and impact the game in a lot of different ways. So I do think when you're picking high, you do want somebody who can do, or they're elite. If you're drafting a big elite rim protector, or something like that. But you really do need to have that skill set when you're up that high, and certainly be athletic enough to be able to
that's
compete,
a good point.
to be able to hold your own defensively. If you can't do those things, I think you're not getting value out of a pick that high in the draft. If you can't do all of it, I don't know that you necessarily belong there. When you're picking later, as the Celtics often have been, I tend to like, I get like the Celtics have hit on safer picks, the Pritchard's proven college type of players, but I always like to kind of shoot for that home run with the guy who missed a year because of something, had something weird happen, the one with the warts that they fell for some reason that might be better than their draft slot. I look for people who slid for reasons that I don't necessarily think are that important.
That's coward. Potentially.
And so because ultimately you're looking for the most amount of talent you can get there, as opposed to, hey, when you draft a guy, you need these players, you need rotation guys, you need people who can fill things out and come off the bench and play. Everyone can't be a star, but when you're in the Celtics position, I do think you need where they haven't done is hit a home run late in outside of the top few picks. And
I think that's related to the fact that these guys don't play.
That's asking a lot, but you see there have been home runs other places each year at spots in and around where the Celtics have picked over the last several seasons, and they haven't hit one. You want to find that guy, whatever that is. It's just hard. It's hard. It's a crab. It's really inexact. You draft up high and you bust at pick 6 or 7. I mean, we talk about this all the time. The most important thing the Celtics ever did was get the picks right when they got to pick up high. And that was Tatum over Fultz and Ball. And that was Jaylen Brown over Dragan friggin' Bender or whoever else they could have taken. That would have been a disaster in that. Imagine you're Josh Jackson and Dragan Bender, like the Phoenix Suns were back to back in those 2 years. You're toast. You're gone. Yep. You're in the lottery for 1,000 more seasons. So, yeah, but it would be nice if they hit somewhere big with that. And, I don't know Shireman was that guy, but I like Shireman's overall potential because he does have court sense,
I like what you said, John, about multiple skills, not just one-dimensional guy or a specialist or something like that. And that's definitely something I look for. And that's why I loved Shireman, because it wasn't just shooting, it was ball handling. Rebounding was really good with him too. And there were questions about his athleticism. If you're not going to be the frontline guy on a team and you're a more complimentary piece, I'm not as worried about that. Your speed, whatever that might be. Like, I think those are things you can get around. If you have some real tangible skills, what are you looking for with prospects when you're looking at guys? Like who what are the skill sets you favor?
I think you don't have like, even if you're not the best shooter ever right now, but if you don't have like the indicators of a good shooter, I kind of feel like this is the wrong league for you unless you have your spectacular.
I hate the
in
guys
other
who can't
ways.
shoot at all.
And there's a lot of guys. I mean, I was looking through the draft profiles and they're like, oh, this guy has all this upside, but like he really can't shoot. And he's
the wings this year
58%
stink at shooting.
from the line. Like it's probably not going to change.
That's why I look
you're
at their free throw
spectacularly-
percentage.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. And a lot of them have bad free throw percentages. So
Yeah.
to me, I'm just thinking about who on the Celtics roster can't really shoot. They don't play. Like Luke's the only one that plays that doesn't shoot, and he does a lot of other things really well.
He's a center.
He's an exception. But even for centers, like I don't even like the centers. Like I know Sorber is a guy that has like a more old-fashioned game. I just think the NBA has just moved away from that. And you look at teams, everybody can shoot, right? Like even if you're not elite at it, like you space the floor, you're not going to be a liability out there. Again, there are very rare exceptions. So to me, like that eliminates a decent amount of prospects, and probably wasn't the case as much 10, 15 years ago, but that's kind of where the league is right now. And you can't be a liability on that end. And yes, guys can get better and they can become better shooters, and there's shot doctors, and we've seen guys on this roster, right? Derek White, so far improved, but you're not going to turn a terrible shooter into a good shooter, I don't think.
It's a good point. Especially there's a guy, Rasheer Fleming, in this class at St. Joseph. He was 29 his freshman year. He was about like 32 his second year. And then he went up to 39 this year. And so what are we talking about? Couple hundred shots one season. Yeah. It's tough to tell if that's real. So with some of these guys, I remember Kobe Brown's a guy I really liked. He went to the Clippers a year ago, I believe. He had one outlier big shooting year to cap off his college career, and then it just didn't really translate last season. Jonathan Mogbo was another one, a guy I really liked last year, went to Toronto. You didn't really see the shooting from him there, even though in his last college year peaked. So that's the other thing I look at too, like the sustainability of your shooting over a college career. Shireman shot 38, 39, 40% across 5 seasons on like 1,000 shots. Sam Hauser did it for many, many years in college, and you knew you were going to be getting legit 40% three-point shooting. So the three-pointer is a huge swing skill. And for the bigs, you want a little of it. For the wings, you definitely want it, because I don't think, especially on this team, they're going to be doing much other than catching and shooting threes. And for the guards, you got to at least be a threat spotting up. So, yeah, I think the shooting is hugely important.
Very quickly, ESPN's John Givney reporting that Utah was not one of Ace Bailey's preferred destinations. So interesting there. What would go on if that was that? What would you guys like more than anything right now?
Pizza.
I don't want them to trade Derek or
No.
right?
Just like, what would be a cool thing to happen right now? What would be something that you think would be fun?
Fun?
Cool, yeah.
I don't know if we have to say that.
This is an open-ended question. I was thinking pizza.
I'm gonna spoil it for you. It's this guy right here,
Bobby.
Jimmy.
Better
Get the pizza.
Noah is in disbelief right now. Look at the
I
smile
can't see you, but I was just thinking we're probably about to wrap any second, and then Jimmy joins.
Yeah,
what does that mean for me and my ability to eat dinner? You know, like that's the first thing
I was listening.
I was like, wow, too. I'm glad we're on the same page.
Jimmy was not in Noah's top 1,000 cool things that could happen right now.
I was like,
Quite the
right,
opposite.
I didn't think it was a basketball thing either. That's why I said pizza. But yeah, Jimmy's here.
basketball thing.
Jimmy, give us your prospect.
John, I thought you were about to break like a
Dude, don't even ask
trade
me.
to me.
No.
Have you watched the all good tape on some of these guys yet, Jimmy?
Yeah, we heard you're the draft expert.
Well, so I'm a highlight reel expert. Absolutely.
Yep.
So if there's a highlight reel of a guy, I'm gonna
Nobody's
watch it.
gonna be on YouTube faster.
And I'm gonna be able to give it a very, very good breakdown. But don't ask me anything about any of these players until I get eyes on that YouTube reel, and then expect some pretty high marks from me. I'll be fired up for it. But no, I just jumped on because I saw a little bit of technical difficulties happening. I could not watch John flounder a third time or a fourth time. He was going off on a Red Sox tangent. And I almost drove off the road.
No, he wasn't.
He was.
No,
he was going off a Red Sox.
I think John was born to deal with the tangents where it's just him on the screen.
I didn't think it'd be Red Sox.
I'm not worried about John when that happens.
He didn't even know that you guys weren't on. Actually, he just started.
He kept us off. We were, yeah.
Yeah. You guys are like this off screen, and he's like, "Nah, I gotta finish this."
No, I'm going.
I'm
vamping.
Yeah.
I gotta go. I'm rolling here.
Did 7 go, John?
7 went.
Who was it?
Well, Jeremiah Fears.
Okay, to New Orleans. So we're
Yeah.
past New Orleans. Brooklyn's up. Brooklyn
So we didn't get any
every
fun
first
trades,
round pick in this draft.
Yeah.
No fun trade. I don't think any are coming, Jimmy. I think they're gonna pick at
We'll
28.
see.
You think they're going to pick at 28? Well, Brooklyn has 5 picks. What about them?
I think that's the type, like, does Brooklyn want Hauser? Maybe they could flip him again, but you did your trade with Brooklyn.
I know.
I guess
I'm
it's
just,
possible.
you know, it's like a domino.
That is what worries me. And again, I'm not in love with any prospect that could be there at 28. So if any of the guys we're talking about come off the board, I'm not going to be heartbroken. But there's teams that can leap up ahead of the Celtics too. I think Brooklyn's at like 3 of the 5 spots in front of them in the draft, I want to say. So the Nets can let anyone who's in the second round or not in the first round into the first round ahead of them if they want to take some of those guys. So that's a tough spot Boston's in. It's tough being at 28, 29, 30 anyway, but
So
the fact that it's selling teams in front of you is tough.
yeah, no matter what, we're jumping off at Toronto after 9.
Yeah,
right now,
I heard you say that.
Brooklyn's on the clock at 8. We're gonna jump off at 9. Real quick, guys, because we're talking about pick 28. And again, just to remind everybody here who's watching the draft with us, and thank you guys for hanging out and spending your draft night with us here. A little break. Pizza. Jimmy's going to watch every YouTube clip imaginable. Then we're going to jump back up maybe around pick 23 or 24 as the Celtics are getting closer to pick 28, and we will ride all the way through that final pick. Then these guys are going to have to bolt real quick because they got to go right and do other things. So we will wrap it. We may or may not jump back on for a recap, but we will bring you Brad Stevens' press conference live. All of that here is on CLNS Media's YouTube channel, the CLNS Media Network. Subscribe and turn your notifications on so you're not surprised when something happens because it's going to be quick. We will also absolutely jump back up live if there is a trade. If the Celtics do trade up into the lottery or into, somewhere in the middle teens here to make a pick, as soon as we get word of that trade, we are going to jump up and talk about it. Let's go over right now some of the top targets at 28 because this is our last chance to do so before we jump on again, and all of them are still on the board because it's early in the draft. And we'll start with Noah here on some of the players that she likes who could be available in that range of the draft. Noah?
Yeah, I like Ryan Kalkbrenner. If I had to guess right now, I think that's who they select if he's available. I've heard of him be described as like somebody who could end up having a similar game to Luke Cornett if everything kind of works out.
Can he bake
he
though? Can he bake?
I don't know. I've heard his personality is not quite as not quite as charismatic as Luke's, which is tough to replicate. But teammates with
Jimmy, see, I needed you.
This is why I did it. This is why I did it.
Noah froze on her top 5.
Here's the problem, John, that I have. A frozen Noah might be able to explain this top 5 better than a fully here and alive,
fully animated Jimmy Toscano.
Yeah, like those guys. And listen, I'm an NBA fan, and I've never really gotten into college basketball. Meaning, and that means I'm not really into the draft that much. So I know a lot of people who can bounce back and forth. I'm just not one of those guys. After Cooper Flag, don't even ask me who's like good and bad.
Well,
I need to just wait for that to happen.
We're going to spare these guys, and we'll see if we can figure something out. But sadly, from where we're broadcasting, we don't have an Ethernet connection. We normally do from the TD Garden, which everything is cleaner there. They're stuck with our back center Wi-Fi, and they're down on the court, so it's not ideal there because the media workspace and where all the Wi-Fi is running is up top. In a different area altogether. So we are sadly at the mercy of this Wi-Fi. We do appreciate you guys.
Classic Celtics.
We do appreciate you guys rolling with the punches with us as well. We're still.
Should we just rifle off Noah's top 5?
We're still going to, we'll throw up Noah's top 5 just to have it on the screen here. Maxime Reynaud, center from Stanford, Danny Wolf from Michigan, Drake Powell, a guard out of North Carolina, and Thomas Sorber. We talked about him as well, center from Georgetown. She also mentioned Sorber potentially somebody that they might look to have to move up for. Not all of these guys are necessarily available. Noah Penda, I've heard that name come up from France. Kalkbrenner is the one who's, if you aggregated every mock draft out there, that's the one that gets put to the Celtics at 28 the most. Okay. Cam Jones, guard out of Marquette. Bobby's also got Reynaud, and Ben Saraf, a guard from Germany. So Bobby, with a little bit of international
He's going
flavor.
European. Yeah, look at that.
He's going European because Bobby likes that stuff.
I don't mind a diamond at 28. I don't mind getting weird. I don't mind trying to fly her out in Europe that maybe doesn't get the same recognition as some of these college kids do, John. I don't know what the Celtics plan is at center. I don't know what it is now. I don't know what it is in the future. I like the idea of grabbing a center. Take your pick. Again, I'm not the guy who's going to tell you which one they should grab. But I imagine these guys, as Noah alluded to earlier, they must be able to have some offensive game to their repertoire, because the years and the days of Kendrick Perkins and those types of players are long gone. I don't know if Perk would even get drafted in today's NBA. Never mind get drafted out of high school. So it's a different league now. It's obviously cyclical, but I don't see this changing anytime soon. They just want five. You want five guys on the court that have the ability to score. And obviously the center is going to be that position that's least likely, certainly. But if you have that ability, at least in college, if you've shown signs of that, in Europe, it's a different game, obviously, but it's still professional basketball. And we've seen, obviously, the European game has grown exponentially over the years. I would take a flyer on one of those bigs. I think at 28, you're probably just drafting the best player available, especially, if somebody slides, of course, in that situation. If you think you want to jump up a few spots, go for it. Otherwise, I'm just gonna go for a center and hope that maybe he can carve himself some sort of a role. Because as it stands, John, it's by far the weakest spot on the Celtics. It was the weakest spot last year, and it's their weakest spot, and they're worse now. They got rid of Porzingis. You don't know if Horford's going to be back. You don't know what Cornette's deal is. They don't even have a center unless you're going to play Georges Niang 40 minutes a game. I don't think you want to do that.
He's not a center. Igor Demon goes to Brooklyn out of BYU. And so you've got Toronto on the clock. We'll hang here. It's 2.5 minutes here before they pick. This is somebody who this is a team that has been mentioned among those that are aggressively trying to make deals. And so this might be the last feasible landing spot if the Celtics were to do anything crazy, where this might be someone who might consider doing something crazy with them. But the reality kind of played out the way, a lot of people thought is nothing else happened. After Jimmy, they made the Holiday and the Porzingis trades. There was less pressure to do anything else to move money. And now holding on to White and Brown seems to make obviously basketball sense because they are good players, unless, of course, you were going to have a deal that would make you better now and in the future. And if that deal didn't present itself, there's no reason to move just for the sake of moving. And I think that's where we're at in this scenario. But
here's the thing, John.
I'm a merchant, I'm a merchant, a chaos merchant. And I part of me wants to see shit just because I find it interesting.
Sure.
So I'm curious what happens here, because you'll react one way or the other. But I don't know that I want to make I don't want to make a move just for the sake of making moves. It doesn't help them in any way to just take whatever and move off one of these players. I think that's silly.
I think why people are so up in the air on what they think is going to happen or what they think should happen is because we just don't know where this Celtics team's head is at collectively.
Yeah.
Are they still interested in winning, or are they interested in regrouping, or whatever word you want to use, rebuilding it up, taking a step back to take 2 steps forward? Which one is it? Because if they're going to make a deal with the team, they need to know, and I'm sure they would know which side of it is they're on. Are you trying to win the deal, or are you trying to win games? Because if you get two teams and one wants to win the deal and one just wants to win games, you might have a match there. I think like the Magic and the Grizzlies had a match because you could argue that the Grizzlies won that deal because of all the first round picks they got. But if you're the Magic, you want to win games, you want to go for a run, you'll overpay for a guy that you think fits. Which team is the Celtics? Are they trying to win games or are they trying to win deals? If they're trying to win deals, maybe they are more likely to get rid of Derek White or Jaylen Brown because there's a team out there, especially for Derek White, I would think, that is willing to pay an arm and a leg. But you're going to take a significant step back when you do that, most likely, right? And theoretically speaking, that's what you're going to do. If you're trying to win games, you're not going to make that trade or those trades. but you're also not really in a position to bring in talent right now. So you're kind of stuck.
Look, the reality is this. Maybe there's more to come. There's no magic like pill. There's no thing that's going to happen that's going to miraculously make this team significantly better next year. And the reality is, unless you're going to go flying back into the second apron, you can't afford Horford or Luke right now without making another trade. So the reality is you have no freaking center next year. Maybe Luke on a minimum. And
unless you draft one.
And that's it. So, guys, we got to be serious now. You could theoretically be entering next season with Ada as your starting center. And
John, that's not true.
There's nothing. And two of your top 6 players from last year active. I don't know what we're doing here, not talking about this as a golden opportunity. I've said this so many times, people are annoyed with me, and that's fine. This is such an obvious, low-key, just let it happen tank year. Like, don't worry about, well, who's going to play center? Nobody. Who gives a shit? Just let it happen. If signing somebody to maybe help you win a couple more games next year does nothing for your future, but somehow falling into the lottery without intentionally trying to do so and being able to rebuild on the fly and then return next year with a lottery pick and Jason Tatum and money makes a big freaking difference. So, like, I don't know what people want, but I will say I don't know what ownership wants. I don't know what Brad wants. I don't know what, and to echo your point, I don't know what Joe wants, and I don't know if they're aligned right now. We don't know if owners have told Brad, keep trading until you get under not just the first apron, under the tax. I don't want to pay a dime above of tax for this team.
Where does it end?
Nor should we. And that could be an order he has received, and we don't know that. We don't know if Joe Mazzulla is going to win at all costs, but Brad low-key is like, hey, Joe, don't worry about winning so much, buddy. Develop, do this thing. I don't know where their mentality is at all. So, like, I don't think Celtics fans know what they want either. Everyone's talking about getting players, and like, I don't know what matters here. What matters to me is a year or 2 years from now and nothing else. I think it's weird to think about anything else. So I don't know, I don't know what it is that you're doing. All I know is you're going to be stuck in mediocrity forever unless you find a way to get an infusion of talent in here quickly to capitalize on the remaining years of Tatum and Brown's prime. And that's in a year, or that's in 2 years, So that's where the clock starts for me. I don't care.
It's a unique type of a rebuild if that's what they decide to do, because you're not rebuilding and starting from zero.
And again, it's a I don't know what this is. I don't know what people are saying. Don't tank. You're tanking. You just traded 2 starters and you're without your best player. This is essentially, you're throwing away the season. Like, they've already kind of thrown away the season. It's like, if you gave away 2 starters and you're without Tatum and you're not going to re-sign Al. The whole 6 starters thing, you're without 4 of them. Like, I don't know what people think this is. I'm feel like I'm taking crazy pills. I think people are still in that state of denial off of what happened. And the Tatum injury changed everything. It changed everything. I think people are still in a weird state of denial over what's happening here. So you do have to commit.
Because tanking is a harsh. I think it's a little bit too harsh. As long as you have Brown, as long as you have White, you're not going to be tanking. You're actually going to be worse in a worse spot. You're going to be middling. I think this team is somewhere between like 7 and 10 in the East, John. I mean, like, give or take. They're a play-in team, which is probably the worst place you can be. I mean, it is the worst place you can be. So if they were to trade Brown or White, then you can say, yeah, they're tanking. I think what they're doing is
Jimmy, the Phoenix Suns with Booker and Durant finished out of the play-in last year. Out of the play-in. Okay.
That's the West.
I understand, but they still fit 36 wins, and I understand it. But like you're talking about, and still some other talent there too. They weren't completely bare. I mean, it's just White and Brown.
Listen, I agree. They do not have a good run. I think I'm
Brown
in
and
agreement
White
with
as
you.
your top 2 players with not with a bad supporting cast is a bad team. It's a bad team.
I don't think they're a good team.
I'm bad
with
team.
You. When I say 7 to 10, I don't think that's like a good thing. I think the East is. I mean, they're not going to be as bad as the Wizards.
Look at this. This is a bad
team.
team. You're right. The East is so bad. Everyone makes a good point in the chat. The East is so bad. It's hard to tank. The bottom of the East makes it hard to tank. You're right.
That's kind of my point. Is like,
guys, they're not. Peyton Pritchard's not bad. Peyton Pritchard is your third best player. Is bad. That's the whole point. Anytime you take these guys and elevate them up from where they were before, you're putting them out of their comfort zone. Luke Cornett was phenomenal as a third center, even as a second center, but he's not a starting center if that's who you bring back. Peyton Pritchard is phenomenal, sixth man. He's not an outstanding starter as and number 2 or 3 offensive option. It's just you're asking guys to carry more weight than they're capable of doing. They're great in their roles as soon as you elevate them. Jaylen Brown is a great number 2. Is he the number 1 guy that the offense is going to run through without a center or a point guard or distributors on offense? You're in a really bad place. I think 35 wins is possible. I think 40-something wins is possible. But
I think they're floating around 500 with this roster, give or take. So. Yeah. I mean, that is the reality. I am not in denial about where this team is at. I understand why fans would be wondering whether or not it's a quote unquote tank year or if they're still going to try to compete. I mean, Simons is solid. I mean, they got something back, right? It wasn't like a complete dump of Jrue Holiday. Porzingis was a dump. And they still, again, I don't even think that they're done. I guess we'll find out, but Hauser is the type of player that could theoretically still be gone. I mean, that to me is an easy one. And so that would save them, more money and again, doesn't make them better at all by getting rid of them. I thought maybe that would be a draft night trade if they were trying to maybe move around in the draft in some capacity. But I guess theoretically,
I don't know. So I don't know. Like I said, I would take the medicine and take a huge step back next year. I think people be surprised how quickly they can get back up, how very quickly they can.
But when you say that, what does that even mean?
Meaning, I think that you can clear a lot of money, which gives you a lot of opportunity. Everyone is going to be in this position too. You're going to be able, once you get yourself financially okay, you're going to be able to make moves and take players away from other players and put yourself back into tax situations that you're comfortable handling and reset and reload on the fly. But you also need assets. You have to have assets. They're a team right now without any ascending stars. They don't have any. They have okay, nice players filling out, the kind of the back end, but they don't have ascending stars or people who could turn into potential all-stars down the road. And they don't have premium draft picks at their disposal. They got to find a way to get some. The only way,
right? So
if you hold Jimmy with what you have now, and then you're stuck in the middle, how are you getting good players outside of trading again and trading or signing or spending yourself back into heavy tax mode? You can't. So the only way to do it organically is to acquire young, cheap assets and future assets and build up in a year or two, in a couple of years around whatever core you're able to keep here. But you got to embrace taking a massive step back, I think. But anyway, quick. You obviously, it goes without saying, you need to hit somewhere in the draft. On one of these drafts someday, you got to hit again like they did on Tatum and Brown. That's how you get your guys. But if they don't, John, excuse me, we forget that Boston, because the Celtics have been able to acquire so much talent over the last X amount of years, we kind of forget it's still not necessarily a free agent destination, right? I mean, whether it's the weather, whether it's the taxes, whatever it may be, if the Celtics do take a massive step back here, wins and losses wise, it doesn't necessarily become a place where players are going to be jumping to come play in. So how do you get the star player? You have to have the contract in order to trade for the contract, right, John? You can't just trade away all your big contracts and star players for pieces or for picks and then don't have the ability to do something like acquire a star at some point by trading away one. So maybe they don't want to do that. Maybe someday they will have interest in trading a Jaylen or a Derek White because of the money that's attached to them. But if they don't have that player, if they don't have those players in mind right now, they're not just going to
do it for the sake of doing it. They need to have the contract is an asset too, John. In order to make the money work in today's NBA, they made it so damn complicated. They need to have something to trade as well. So that could be thinking behind it as well too.
Yep.
Maybe it's a superstar for a superstar someday. It's just the fit just isn't there at this point.
Yeah. Again, I firmly believe, and I'm going to stick with it, that rebuilding around 2 Supermax players is going to be exceedingly challenging. And I think it's the easy thing to do to hold because Jaylen Browns don't grow on trees, and the likelihood that you're going to trade for anything that resembles or comes close to achieving the success that Jaylen Brown has for you is unlikely. But I do think you're going to be stuck if you stand pat and don't do something bold and take a shot. So I think it could blow up in your face, but I do think standing pat assures that you're going to be stuck in the middle for a little bit of time here, and you're going to waste the remaining primes of Brown and Tatum, which I think would be worse. So anyway, there's some trade, but I don't think it's important to the Celtics fans. Bailey, don't say trade unless it's us. Is it us? It's not us.
No.
Hornets
trading
Phoenix,
Mark Williams.
Mark Williams. Yeah, Mark Williams. Yeah, I got that one. So
and the Suns just
a trade
drafted.
has happened. It says it right there on the screen.
Nice tweet at Noah. I like
anyway, Celtics hold pick number 28 in the first round of the NBA draft. So what we're going to do, we're going to tell you again right now, and Jimmy Toscano will be along for this ride the whole way through. We're going to jump back on in a little bit, so we're just going to dip out for now.
Let me ask you this, John, real quick.
Let me tell people, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications, or look for us around pick 23 or 24. That's where we're going to come back up again. And take you all the way through the Celtics pick at 28. Should there be a trade, I will let you know. Once again, we will jump on immediately. If the Celtics trade up from 28, we will jump back up immediately and try to take you through that and analyze it in real time. Jimmy, go ahead.
I was going to ask you, I mean, that the trade that just went down, Hornets traded Mark Williams to the Suns for the 29th pick in a 2029 first round pick. Is that a trade that you would make for the Celtics? Because the Celtics have the 28th theoretically, the value is there, but a 28th overall pick and a 2029 first round pick for Mark Williams, a center. You just talked about how the Celtics have no center. Boston doesn't make that trade. They don't acquire the salary. They don't fill a need. Does that kind of give you another hint that maybe they are on the tank side of things as opposed to the improved side of things, because it just feels like the trade they could have made if they wanted to fill a void, fill a need. Maybe shut up probably puts a kibosh on signing Horford and signing Cornet at that point. If you trade for a guy like Mark Williams at center,
I think the Celtics can't consider. I think the Celtics are smart enough to know that trading future assets and picks for people who can help you now is probably not the direction that
now
they need to be
and
going.
theoretically, I guess a few years from now. But that's the state of the Celtics. That's a peek into. Sometimes they don't have to tell you; they can tell you without telling you, I guess.
Yeah, and again, but you don't know because sometimes you want to do something and it doesn't happen. It happens all the time. You want to trade, you want to move up, you want to move back, and you just get stuck. And that's that. So. We don't really know. And again, you don't know their mind. What we do know is when all's said and done, they're going to tell you everything went exactly to plan. We never planned on trading those guys. That's insane. They're huge parts of our core. We love the guy that we had at 20. We got at 28. We considered him even higher. When they trade out, they'll tell you that, we got the guy we wanted, but later in the draft too, you're never going to know. So we don't know exactly what they want to do right now, but I do agree with you, Jimmy, that I don't think they're looking for now moves. Like fans will sit here and say things like, who's going to play center? And I don't think they give a shit. I really don't. I don't think so. Because I think if they're smart, they have to see what we see a little bit, which is this is not about today. It's about tomorrow. So, we'll see what happens there. We are going to dip out. As we said, we will be back up shortly. So again, you guys go get a slice of pizza, do whatever you do. We hope that you all are back here when we return, because we'd love to spend.
Come on back.
We'd love to spend the rest of the draft night with you. And again, we just got Jimmy. So now we're cooking with gas.
Cooking.
Yeah.
You have my insight, my very astute draft knowledge added to the show.
And I have somebody with whom to filibuster should the live shot go down.
Anybody
again,
watching, when the Celtics make their pick, please tweet me your best highlight reel of that pick. Tweet me Jimmy_Toscano. I will watch it. I will have my thoughts. I have my opinions on the player and whether or not he is as good as his highlight reel shows. So that's my ask.
Bailey, just tell me what the trade is. Don't say another trade. Tell me what the trade is.
Damn it, Bailey.
It doesn't matter to us. Doesn't matter here.
The Portland Trailblazers are trading Cedric Coward at number 11 to the Memphis Grizzlies. Sources.
Oh,
that's according to Shams.
Could there be a star on the move there?
Interesting. Cedric Coward, tough one. But
Coward, it's pronounced.
That would make sense. Knew he wouldn't be available for. Bobby said, "There goes Coward. Knew he wouldn't be available for long. Blazers are building a team of tanks." It's according to Bobby.
Wow. Apparently Memphis is.
Apparently.
So sorry, suck it, Bobby. Try to keep up.
Yeah. Please, Bobby's just a step behind. Let's see. He goes, "Never mind, going to Memphis." That's his tweet following up that.
Just delete the previous one and call it a day.
Yeah, Bobby. Nobody saw that. Except I just announced it. It's forever. So, anyways, all right, we'll be back. Let's get out of here. I got to eat dinner.
Okay. Jimmy's going to eat dinner, and we'll be back probably, guys, in less than an hour. So, again, come hang out with us. Thank you guys for hanging out. It was fun. Chat, as always, was great. Subscribe to the channel, support our sponsors, but most of all, just come hang out. That's what we like the most. And we'll take you through the rest of the draft here tonight. Until then, we'll see you guys in a little bit. Take care.
No one's sneaking a vegan brownie by me, I'll tell you that.
Okay, you know what, John? We're going to do it.
You have to feel that way too, Bobby.
I have to feel that way. Let's
Yeah.
fight out over and make Luke your first center.
Bobby, we gave you Luke an hour early. We're not going to end this on a damn conversation about Luke